recruiting.
I'm on scholarship with ESPN. I don't wave the banner, unlike who, Mark?
Nebraska?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
He's recruiting very well, so it could set things up. Reese told me that.
For me, it is about wins and losses. And the first one I look at Texas A&M. R.C. Slocum won down there each and every year. So what do? They fire him, and they come and they bring in Dennis Franchione. What does he do? Goes 4-8 his first year. That team did not progress. Now, the other one I look at is Washington. I look at this situation with Keith Gilbertson. This is a football team that he inherited. Cody Pickett threw for 4,500 yards last year. And Reggie Williams, one of the best wide receivers in the nation. They went to a bowl game last year. They were 7-6. This year they struggled to be 500 at 6-6.
A lot of turmoil in Washington for sure. And that's the common thread among several of those programs that you guys mentioned. Turmoil within the ranks, and these first-year coaches will have their jobs cut out to try to turn things around. Auburn's endured a little turmoil of late. Jason Campbell is starting his third bowl game. Wait, that's in pretty good company with Pat Sullivan, the Heisman Trophy winner. Coming up in just a little while. Back on College Game Day, built by the Home Depot, and of course, as mentioned, and as all of us are anticipating, 2 national championship games this year will start in Pasadena in the Rose Bowl, and of course, in the Nokia Sugar Bowl between Oklahoma and LSU. Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit will have their eyes on all of it. They start in Pasadena, guys.
Well, Reese, thanks. That's the Santa Monica Pier. Not a bad place to spend New Year's Eve on the promenade there. And then, of course, as you mentioned, 72 hours after the Rose Bowl game here, the championship setting will shift from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico and the Nokia Sugar Bowl. Remember, if Michigan wins here, that becomes an undisputed national championship game, and it should be one of the wildest weekends in New Orleans history, and I'm including Mardi Gras. You talk about an LSU team that was unranked at the end of last year, 15th in the preseason, 12th in the first BCS standings, with the wildest fan base in history, playing in a dome for the school's first national title since 1958. Other than that, a pretty dull, quiet weekend down in the Big Easy.
It's just something that's going to move this whole state. I mean, we know it's going to be wild and crazy out there, and it's just something you try to take advantage of and try to use it to the best of your ability.
It feels unreal to me for to be able to say that I played the national championship in New Orleans, 45 minutes from where I grew up and live.
A lot of us have played in the Superdome in the past, you know, be it state championships or just high school, and then, you know, playing in the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago. You know, I wouldn't say it's a big advantage, but I'd rather have it than not have it.
Rodney, this ain't the high school championship. We've seen Sugar Bowls involving SEC teams down there. The atmosphere is insane and crazy, let alone when it's the home state team for a national title.
I think LSU has a tremendous advantage playing in New Orleans, not only before the home crowd, but inside. Listen to this stuff. LSU Tigers, 9-0 inside. Coach Nick Saban never lost the game when he coached inside. But this is my favorite. LSU recently beat Georgia 34-13 on the exact same turf that they have in New Orleans. And I think psychologically that's a tremendous advantage.
A lot of psychological factors going into this game. I'm with both you guys. I think it's very obvious. LSU, they go to any Sugar Bowl, rare appearance in the Sugar Bowl, and their fans go ballistic. Now, essentially, they're hosting the national championship game. The stadium, the momentum, the atmosphere definitely swings to the advantage of the LSU Tigers, but there is an equalizer. The equalizer, in my mind, is that Oklahoma is this year's Ohio State. They embarrassed themselves 35-7. The whole nation saw it, and since that time, they've had to hear about they shouldn't be in this game. How they don't have a right to even play in the game. You think Bob Stoops is using that maybe as a motivating factor to get his team ready to play against LSU? Oklahoma will show up, and I think the attitude of the Sooners in an underdog role, I think, would kind of equalize the attitude.
Yeah, whether they deserve to be there kind of misses the point. We play under these rules and these systems. And under this system, they deserve to be there. Now, the system should be changed, and it's flawed.
Right, but I'm just
saying.
But
you can't blame Oklahoma
I'm not blaming, I'm just saying that Bob Stoops is definitely spinning this in a way that's going to help motivate his team by the time they show up ready to play.
Nick Saban's not sitting around doing nothing either.
I know.
All these coaches are good at spinning. I promise you that's why they're in this position to also be watching the Rose Bowl, and I guarantee you're rooting for the maize and blue to make that game in New Orleans an undisputed national championship game. Guys, back to you.
Chris, you're absolutely right. Coach is great at spinning. No spin zone here. There's a no spin zone enforced right here. And you don't have to spend anything to talk about some of the great performances that have been put up during Capital One Bowl Week. They cranked up in the early going with Ben Roethlisberger of Miami, 376 yards, 4 touchdowns in the win over Louisville on his way to the NFL. Steven Jackson, 5 touchdowns, Las Vegas Bowl and school record, and all bowl record. Phillip Rivers, nearly 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. You see the big offensive numbers just keep on coming with Timmy Chang and that overtime classic win over Houston. 5 touchdowns. Well, wait. Jason Wright, 336 all-purpose yards, second most in a bowl game. And B.J. Simmons, we saw yesterday in Houston, throw for nearly 500, 4 touchdowns to beat Navy. Offense. But
who does those graphics? Who's responsible for that? Do they know that there's defensive players in these games?
And Mark May.
That's the problem with that graphic right there. Yeah, we've had nice offensive performances, but at some point, yeah, there was great defense played, and I thought I saw one of the best defensive performances from a linebacker in a bowl game that I've seen in a long time. He's a sophomore. He's number 51, Will Durting from Washington State. Had 3 sacks, a tackle for a loss, 2 fumble recovers, was in Chance Mock and Vincent Young's face all day long. A sophomore, an unbelievable player. Should have been on that board, Mark. There's great defensive effort.
That's a nice job.
Thank you.
You know what sells tickets?
Defense.
No, offense. Nobody wants to pay to see a 0-0 game or a 3-0 game.
Who's in
Look
the
at the numbers up
game?
there. The quarterbacks are throwing big numbers out there, but the player I want to talk about, Oregon State's Steven Jackson, 200 total yards, 5 touchdowns, and his last game playing football as a collegiate athlete, and he came with it. Ran hard, ran over defenders each and every play. He didn't say, oh, I'm going to the NFL, protect my legs, protect my knees. No, every single play, 100%. I respect that. That's a great job out of Steven Jackson.
And you got an opportunity to see another terrific running back coming up in just a little while. Actually, you could take your pick of several guys in the game we've got coming up, including this one, Anthony Davis of Wisconsin for 3,000 yards in his career. Wisconsin and Auburn coming up in just a little bit. 10 straight years, Wisconsin has had a 1,000-yard rusher. They are short right now. Dwayne Smith would need 154 yards against Auburn today. Whether they reach that mark or not, Barry Alvarez just hopes he has 100 victories in the vault by the end of the day. Matt Weiner standing by with the Wisconsin head coach.
Well, Barry, it's the first time since week 2 you've had all your offensive skill position folks at your disposal. How much of a luxury is it to have Anthony Davis back in the lineup?
Well, Anthony's a special running back, and he's an elite player, and you always want to have your best guys on the field. So it's really a treat to have he and Jim Sorgi back healthy.
Close games down the stretch, but you struggled a little bit, losing 4 of your final 5. How important is it to get off to a good start today and get the confidence rolling?
Well, we'd like to get off to a fast start. I think we practice well. I think our guys are ready to go. They know the game plan, and that's it will be one of our emphasis, starting fast.
Defensively, I'm assuming the game plan priority number 1 is to stop Carnell Williams.
Well, you have to do that, but I know they'll take some shots downtown. They've got good speed at wide receiver, and we've got to be smart about how we load the box, but we better be able to stop the run.
Big Ten has dominated this game.
Well, let's hope it continues.
All right, Barry, thanks. Good luck. Let's send it back to Reese.
All right, Matt, to further expound on something Matt said, Auburn is 7-0 when they score first, 0-5 when they don't. Wisconsin,
good job,
Reese. You know what? It would bode well for Wisconsin if they go off to a good start.
Yes.
Big Ten is the reigning champion of the ESPN Bowl Challenge Cup, and our standings at this moment, the Western Athletic Conference, 3-0 so far. They've only got 1 game left. Batting 1,000 is going to be impossible to beat. The huge win for the WAC over the Pac-10 last night with Fresno State beating UCLA. ACC still undefeated as well, and the SEC is yet to play. But the Cadillac is about to put it in gear. Caddy getting ready to run for the Tigers against the Badgers. A year-ending feast on Capital One Bowl Week. We will have the AXA Liberty Bowl, Southern Mississippi against Utah at 3:30 Eastern Time. Utes a Mountain West champion, but Chris Fowler, that's only a small part of a wonderful story in Utah.
Reese, you're right. You're talking about their tight end, Ben Moa, a guy who isn't an NFL prospect, even though he's not really a prototype, but 6 foot 2 inches tall. He's also a husband and a father and a guy who wants to someday devote his career to helping youth, which is a complete turnaround from a youth that began really here in Southern California, featured gunshot wounds, frequent fingerprinting. Chris Conley and the literal identity change of Moa along his incredible career journey.
The name is from the South Pacific nation of Tonga, Moa. And for this Utah star, it's a surname that honors his beloved grandfather. But 22-year-old Ben Moa has had that name only since 2002. It took the first 21 years of his life to earn it. At the age of 9, the man-child then known as Ben Allison was stealing cars. As a preteen in Salt Lake City, Ben says he joined some of his cousins in a gang, the Tongan Crips.
What kind of stuff would you guys get into?
Mainly just drinking, selling drugs, and fighting, and occasionally getting shot at and shooting people.
How old were you when you used to hang out?
12.
One night during that time, Ben stole a car, shot a rival gang member in the groin, then led police on a high-speed freeway chase before being captured. Ben would spend 3 years of his life at Mill Creek Youth Center, Utah's last chance for youthful offenders. Released at 16, Ben was taken in by Mace Tua Tagloa, an ex-counselor from Mill Creek. Mace and his family gave Ben love and structure. Ben's all-state football skills gave him a full ride to the University of Utah.
He could have played in the secondary, could have played linebacker, could have played tight end. I mean, he had a lot of flexibility because he was a nasty kid to boot. So he had the what you call a football personality.
Ben was a tight end at Utah, where in January of 2000 he met a student named Christina Nuno. By July, they were married, even though Christina didn't believe Ben's tales of gang life.
I was like, okay, yeah, whatever, you're in a gang.
When did you realize that it was really true and it was a huge part of his upbringing?
After we got married and he got shot.
It was a late Friday night in August 2000 at a family wedding just outside Salt Lake City. Ben was with Christina when he heard there was a showdown brewing with a rival gang in the reception hall's parking lot.
Right before I was about to go out to go see what happened, she grabbed me and she was like, let's go home. And I was like, nah.
I remember crying to him, telling him to leave with me, and him just looking at me like I was a piece of glass and saying no.
It was kind of like my wife or my cousins. And I just said, just go home, Christina.
In this parking lot, there was a confrontation, a scuffle, then gunshots.
Police found one man shot in the leg, another shot in the chest. The latter turned out to be 19-year-old Ben Allison, a first-year tight end on the U of U football team.
The first one hit me right here, right in my chest, and it hit my lung and collapsed it.
Did you think you were going to die?
I thought I was for a minute.
Ben was airlifted to a hospital in Salt Lake. His mother and his wife hurried to his bedside.
Me and his mom were telling him how much we loved him and, that we were going to be by his side. But he looked like he was dead.
5 days after being shot, a heavily bandaged Ben was back on the field. His lungs filled with blood after practice, and he was rushed back to the hospital for another 2 weeks. Utah redshirted him. Then, in November, while in the Utes locker room, Ben stole $200 out of a teammate's wallet. He was kicked off the team.
He came home and he told me, and that was the very first time I saw him really cry. He was crying. He's probably going to hate me for saying that, but he was crying because something that he loved, football, was taken away from him.
That's when I went back and started kicking it with my cousins again.
He was going to go pay, the money back or whatever, and he never came back. And then I left him. I wasn't going to wait around for him.
Pregnant with the couple's first child, Christina moved back to Modesto, California to be with her parents and waited to see what choice Ben would make this time.
Something in his head must have clicked that if he doesn't, change his life or something, he's going to end up in prison or end up dead.
Then I had to make a decision again, whether I wanted to be a G or if I wanted to be my wife and my son. And I picked my son and my wife.
Well, I see it right there.
In less than 2 years in Modesto, Ben did change. He became a father, grew closer to his wife, began going to church, all while starring for the local junior college football team. So when the Utah coaches asked him back, Ben saw a chance for redemption.
I had to make it right. I couldn't just leave and everybody would think, oh man, that kid was horrible, man. He stole and got shot and gangster and all this stuff.
And to make his chance for redemption complete, Ben decided to make one more change. He dropped his biological father's name, Allison, and took his grandfather's name, Moa.
His grandfather was a big influence on his life when he was a young boy. And taking his grandfather's name, he knew that was going to make his grandfather, so proud of him.
I needed to take his name and make it big.
And so Ben Moa has, becoming a major part of the Utes' 9-2 season under their new coach Urban Meyer, and the key figure in November's triple overtime win over Air Force.
4th down, 1 yard to go for the Utes.
Our offensive line coach wanted to run a sneak. Our coordinator said a sneak was too far away, and I wanted to run a little pop pass. And Ben Moa looks at me.
I grabbed his arm and I was like, Coach, I'll put that on my son. I'll put it on my life. I'll put it on everything. I believe I'll make it. I'll make it in the end zone. I'll get in. Just give me the ball.
I said, no, on your life. And he said yes. And the offensive line got behind him. And so we called that play because of Ben Moa.
Moa gets a high snap from center, and Moa dives in for the touchdown.
And that set up the two-point play perfect.
Moa asks for the ball. He's got it. Moa fakes. He lobs it into the end zone. It's good. You knew it won the game.
What a call, and what an end to this football game.
It took most of his 22 years, but Ben Moa found the strength to change everything about his life and become a man to whom his grandfather would be proud to pass on the family name.
It felt good, man. It felt like I finally brought a little bit of honor to my grandpa's name, because all the newspaper writings were saying like one Moa win and one Moa time. I'm sure my grandpa seen that and smiled.
Ben and Christina expecting their second child in February. In the meantime, he's going to have to go off and prove himself at the Hula Bowl, show he can play in the NFL. That was one of the celebrations of the season against Air Force, and why not? This guy has a lot to celebrate. And Kirk, that Utah offense involving Moa so much, aside from the 3-0 win against BYU in the Blizzard, really came on late in the season.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do, obviously, with Urban Meyer and what he was able to establish at Bowling Green and turning that football program around. He's done the same thing this year at Utah. You realize Urban Meyer, last year, the MAC Coach of the Year, this year, the Mountain West Coach of the Year. Tremendous future for Urban Meyer today in this football game because they don't have the deep ability to hurt Southern Miss, who plays a ton of man coverage. It's up to Alex Smith, and getting Brandon Warfield back in this game will help them. They need to be consistent to have a chance against that tough Southern Miss defense.
Who do you like?
I like Utah.
Not so fast, Pasadena style.
Right.
Southern Mississippi has won 6 in a row by averaging over 35 points a game, but I think they win this one on defense. Tyrone Nix is one of the best young defensive coordinators in the country. His 3-3-5 defense confuses Utah and Southern Miss in a mild upset.
Very mild.
Very mild.
The final not so fast of 2003?
No,
I don't know. There's other shows, right?
The whole game.
We got a whole day game.
Oh, I know for a fact we're going to begin 2004 with some disagreement here.
Lots
So,
of them. Watch them the whole game.
See you tomorrow morning from Pasadena. The script, not exactly something Hollywood created, Reese, but it certainly makes for an interesting end to our season. Let's go back to you guys.
No question about that, Chris. And things haven't gone as scripted for Barry Alvarez or Tommy Tuberville. They'll try to end their scripts on a high note in just a few moments.
College Game Day, built by the Home Depot. You can do it. We can help.
Capital One Bowl Week rings out 2003 this way with these 4 games.
Well, I like Boston College big over Colorado State in the San Francisco Bowl. How about Derek Knight? 3,600 yards in his career, 5.5 yards a carry. Physical Boston College team. I like him big, Mark.
Could it be that Colorado State's quarterback Bradley Van Pelt has a titanium rod in his throwing hand? Is that why you like Boston College? And you might see his backup Justin Holland play a lot in this game?
And he's played quite a bit throughout the course of the season, but there's no question that Colorado State needs Bradley Van Pelt to play and to play well. Let's look at the Sonic Bowl Mania Challenge, and I'll tell you what, Mr. Roberts, you took a little bit of a hit last night, but you're looking pretty strong. This is a big day for everyone, though.
Yes, this is a big day, but I still feel strong there at the show horse.
Contrary to many beliefs, I am participating in the Sonic Bowl Mania Challenge. I'm just waiting for my appropriate chance.
You're not a conscientious objector at this point,
No,
is that
I'm
what you say? The game that we're going to start New Year's Eve Day 2003 with, the Gaylord Hotel's Music City Bowl. Auburn against Wisconsin, couple of teams that had higher aspirations, did not reach conference championships. but hoping to end the season on positive notes.
Reese, I really think that this is one of those games that you find out right away in the first quarter. You look at both these teams, who's getting 4, 5, and 6 yards on first down, running the football, Mark, the physical team, the team that really wants to be there, they're going to win the game, and I think that team is Auburn.
I think there's a challenge out there between these two running backs. You look at Anthony Davis from Wisconsin and Cadillac Williams from Auburn. I think that each time each player gets a big game, the other player on the other sidelines is going to tell his coach, I want the ball. I want that opportunity.
All of those running backs, and then throw into the mix speed at wide receiver for Auburn, and of course Lee Evans for Wisconsin. Ought to be a great way to start your New Year's Eve day. We're going to head down to Nashville right now.
What, Jimmy Leonard?